Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You know, definitely the top 100 list gives us a lot to talk about. I will have to give that. It gives us a lot of stuff that we can talk about, and everybody can. I guess everybody got in through the portal this time, didn't they? Maybe
So
Rodney,
far, so good.
maybe Rodney didn't.
He's here.
I'm here.
There he goes. Well, there he went.
Maybe I turned him off. Let's see, Rodney. If they're still on YouTube, check out Armand Hussein as Armand the Butcher, him and Abdullah as Kayfabe Butcher Brothers. They were devastating together. Yeah.
Okay.
He was very good as a wrestler. I thought. I was never a fan of the Great Mephisto. I was really never a fan of the Sheik.
No.
I just didn't like those Arab type gimmicks. I for some reason I didn't like them. I just they didn't compute with me or something. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't like them. But Michael Barr, I am the man of 60 matches. So I only need 940 to beat Mil Mascaras. Yes, Mil Mascaras actually says 1,000 masks. That's exactly what it means. Let's see. By the way, guys, for everybody who is watching this, we have a new way we're going to get everybody on. We will not be giving everybody a link every week. I'm finishing it up this week, and I will make sure everybody gets a message. That way, we don't have to send links out. You just know to go to this certain place each week, and I'm just tweaking it, making sure that it's easy to get to. Nobody will have a problem with it, and I just want to do a couple of more little trials before I give it to you. But I want to make it easier for people who say they don't get the links or the links don't work, and we've got to make it easy on everybody. All right, is Aaron with us? I think it will. I've tried it a few times. And I believe, but I'm going to try it more than a few times. I'm going to try it 5 or 6 or 7 times, make sure it always works, and everybody can get on there, and it won't be hard for people to get to, and it'll just be the same place every week. Let's see, Aaron, are you with us? All right, Aaron.
Hey.
All right, so he is with us. And so here we go, Aaron. This is your question you asked, and we'll start with that right now. Going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. We're going to answer a question. Aaron Gartland sent us a question about Continental Championship Wrestling, USA Championship Wrestling, Southeastern Championship Wrestling. This is what he asked us to do. He said he would like to know about tickets by category, sold in each venue, and how they were sold. There was no Birmingham. I believe you could buy tickets in advance at the Boutwell Auditorium, but I believe that was it. There was no ticket locations, were there?
No, almost all the ticket locations were at the arenas in most cases.
There was no other way to buy tickets in Birmingham. Florence, you could only buy them the day of. I don't know that there was any advance tickets sold in Florence, Alabama. Meridian, Mississippi, when it ran, you could only buy it the day of. There was no advance tickets. Dothan was no advance tickets. You bought them that maybe an hour before the show, and those people get mad at you if you didn't open it up right on time. Rodney knows. He was there many times. But there was no advance ticket locations. Really, they didn't have advance ticket locations. The only time they might have advance ticket location if there was a spot show that the sponsors got for the advance ticket location, but then mostly it didn't. And a lot of times you didn't want to have advance ticket location because a lot of times the money never came up. There was always some reason you would get there. They'd be $100, $200 short, and you don't know if they stuck that in their pockets or they just sold the tickets wrong. You didn't know.
Gave the tickets away. whatever. You never know.
So you just didn't do that. And Jack, I'm pretty sure you've run into advanced ticket locations where
Oh yeah.
you figured they either pocketed it or they just didn't know how to sell tickets. So as far as tickets go, very, very Knoxville, Tennessee, I believe sold their tickets in advance at the Coliseum. I think Johnson City, Freedom Hall was on, not Freedom Hall, but the Recreation Center there. They only sold tickets the day of the event. There was no Chattanooga. I believe you could go to the Memorial Auditorium and buy your tickets in advance. But the advances wasn't that huge. I can remember even Knoxville, Tennessee, when we go to Knoxville, it would only do $3,000 or $4,000 in advance most of the time. And so you'd always think you was going to do horrible, and then you end up doing $36,000 gate at the Knoxville Civic Coliseum. So you really couldn't go on the, used to, you could say, oh, I could do 3 times that. Am I correct, Rodney?
Right. The thing about it is the Continental Southeastern was always walk-up towns. It didn't matter. It was always walk-up towns.
He asked a question about the amount of programs. They'd only order about 500 each week. Very rare did they have a lot. And while we were there, now I don't know what they did while we wasn't there, but I remember picking up 500 programs. Dothan was a horrible place to sell merchandise. I mean, I got to the point I wouldn't even go there. I mean, nobody would buy nothing. It was just a bad town for that. Pensacola was the same way. You couldn't sell a lot of stuff in Pensacola. Birmingham, you would sell enough in Birmingham. You wouldn't even have to go the whole rest of the week. Birmingham was tremendous. We'd sell maybe 200 or 300 programs out of the 500 we'd have in Birmingham. Pictures, we'd sell everything we almost had in Birmingham. We'd always have to try to find something to sell the rest of the week. Yep. So Birmingham was tremendous.
And that was bad. That was bad when you had Birmingham on a Monday and then going to Friday night. It's going to be in Knoxville. You had nothing. You were tapped out.
And what would happen too if we was going to Birmingham? We were either going to go to Columbus, Mississippi, or we're going to go to Florence, Alabama on the next day. Now, sometimes the spot shows on Tuesdays, but if we were going to have to go to Florence and Columbus and we didn't have enough, that's when you would cry, because Columbus, Mississippi, tremendous town too. If sometimes we would order 500 programs, and if we did Birmingham on a Monday and Tuesday we hit Columbus, they would be gone. We would have none for the rest of the week. Now, Knoxville had its own program, and it was done by Bob Polk. So we didn't handle the programs there. He took care of them, sold them, and we did it first. And then I think Bob Polk thought we were making money, and he decided he didn't want us making no money, so he gave it to somebody else. He took it himself. I think that's what he did. As far as the merchandise sold, we don't know about everybody. We do know that Bullet Bob Armstrong, selling tremendous stuff on Monday nights. Everywhere he went. The person who sold the most stuff in Knoxville was Wendell Cooley. Wendell Cooley's stuff would sell tremendously, but we were one week, Rodney, and what would we sell sometimes? $7,000-8,000 sometimes during the week.
For the whole week, yeah.
For the whole week. So we would sell 7,000-8,000. Maybe Tommy Rich, Johnny Rich, they might do 3,000 or 4,000 for the week. I mean, so merchandise was sold, and but we couldn't. Concessions, the only place they actually ran their own concession stand was in Mobile, Alabama, and the spot shows. It was good, but man, we never liked to do them.
For me, it was never enough money made for the aggravation that you had to go through. And of course, we did just sell it in Columbus, Mississippi as well.
Yes. Jack, what do you think of concession stands, food concessions? We never like to really handle them. How about you?
I've seen good and bad. I never liked to handle them either, because it meant just a lot more work. And some places you could do pretty good off concessions. Other hand, you might be stuck with Dr. Pepper and hot dogs for weeks on end. so it was, to me, it was just never worth it. Now, I managed the theater for a few years, where it was the exact opposite. That's where you made really where the theaters make their money. That's why they're so expensive. But wrestling, we couldn't do that. You couldn't pay $5 for a ticket and then pay $15 for concessions.
Aaron asked about the promotional and advertising revenue generated. No No promotional advertising revenue was brought in by maybe television. I believe they had a deal with what was the name of the company that used to make houses? And they
Jim
don't make
Walter.
them now.
Jim Walter
Homes.
Jim Walter Homes. They did have some type of agreement with Jim Walter Homes. We don't know what that was for Continental Wrestling. We do not. That was between Ron Fuller and them. I don't know what their deal was. I do know that they talked about them a lot on that show, so I'm not for sure what type of agreement they had with them. But mostly there were barter agreements on television. So most of the time we got the Continental Wrestling or Georgia Championship Wrestling, they would get 7 minutes, and the other, and then you would get 7 minutes. And back then, if you went over those 14 minutes of commercial time, you could get fined for talking about anything and promoting anything and trying to make any money off of that. So you had to stick with that. That was way before the infomercial come along and could sell something the whole time. The promotional and advertising, talent, payroll, production, building, television, travel costs, that would be different. That would be different for every town. Birmingham was good. Roddy, what was Birmingham good on Monday nights? What was it good for almost every Monday night?
Oh, you'd have on average probably between 3,000 to 4,000.
And that would probably be what, a $12,000 gate back then with ticket prices really were.
Ron Fuller could say that he could pay the entire payroll for the entire week just out of Birmingham. That's how good Birmingham was doing.
And Columbus, Mississippi, we sold the tickets there. What, $8,000 gate?
That about seven to eight. And we did pretty good, about $800 in concessions there. And Columbus, Mississippi was just an exception to the rule about concessions. But most places like Mobile, if we made $100, we'd be happy. That's about it.
Florence, Alabama. It was good for about $6,000 to $8,000 every time you went there until they had the cage match that went.
Right.
That took longer to put the cage up than it did to have the match.
Yes.
That was not very good, but every place was different. Knoxville, Tennessee, it was probably the best one because even years ago, ticket prices were more in Knoxville than they were anywhere else. So that could get up to, we were in 1989, we were drawing $36,000 gates in Knoxville, Tennessee. That was about the only town in 1989 that was drawing real good houses for David Woods and Continental Wrestling Federation. Meridian, Mississippi was good for what, $2,000 or $3,000 gates each and every week. Wasn't huge, but it didn't cost much to run Meridian, Mississippi. It was a very low cost deal. Montgomery.
Part of Meridian's problem was the arena.
Yeah,
it was not a good place.
There was no good parking around that place at all.
No, it was difficult. It was a difficult arena.
Montgomery, Alabama, maybe $4,000 for a long period of time. It was not good until Cat Collins came along. Cat Collins, which had been doing television for Jim Crockett Jr. For many years. He ends up in Alabama, Montgomery, contacts us. And back then, now you were very hesitant for somebody to say they knew what was going on. He said, "Now I was working for so-and-so." And you was like, "Hey, wait a minute. I don't know if he's telling the truth." So telephone calls were made to see if he actually was somebody that was in the wrestling business. But Cat Collins come along, and that went from $4,000 to about $8,000. It doubled the arena because Cat Collins was such a huge radio personality. I have to ask this question. It's getting off a little bit. Is radio personalities what they used to be? Do they mean as much anymore as what they meant back in the 70s and in the early 80s?
No. People don't listen to the radio like they used to.
Because you think about it, when you would have somebody from a radio station, and let's say it was somebody in Chattanooga back in the 1970s and early 80s, they would get a huge reaction from people. But now they're just like, who is that? Yes. It's sad that radio. There's a lot to this right now, Aaron. When you talk about promotional advertising, what talent was only guaranteed $40 a night. That was their guarantee. They were making more than that. Sometimes $600-700 a week was on average, and probably in 1985, 86, 87, they were probably averaging $600 or $700 a week. In 1983, maybe they were making $280 a week, and that was just a little bit of time while we were there. We got there sometime in 1983. It was like maybe the Christmas in '88. It was horrible. Business was horrible, wasn't it, right?
Yes. So, they had good. We went down on Thanksgiving night, and it was good. We went back on Christmas night, and it was great. And then we would come back. We moved down through Christmas. We moved down there, and it was like somebody decided to shut the doors and tell people that the wrestling would be there. It was awful. I mean, it was awful.
Our father was only making the $40 a night. The guarantee, whatever he was guaranteed, 280, which would have been about 280. Sometimes they didn't run on Wednesdays at that time. They were just off on Wednesdays. And because they ran Monday was Birmingham, Tuesday was Mobile, Wednesday they were off, Thursday was Montgomery, Friday was a spot show around the area, probably Panama City. Saturday morning was Dothan TV. Saturday night was the Dothan Farm Center. And Sunday was Pensacola, Florida. Very easy territory, by the way. But he goes from making about $240 a week to making $2,400 to $3,000 a week when he gets to Mid-South Wrestling. He leaves there making that, which we never understood why he left, making that kind of money to go back there to only make about $300 or $400 a week. So he goes
and just so everybody knows, by the inflation calculator, that was $780 in today's money.
So, you've got to understand, but every, production, when they were at WTBY, wasn't paid nothing for production. They may have paid $500 a week to make the dubs to send out to other people because they didn't have to pay for television back in those days until they started going into Birmingham. Straightforward, I believe maybe $1,200 a week is what they were being paid. And that was a lot of money back in 1985, 86. And I believe when what's the Cross Creek Productions come along, it went up to $2,500 a week, I believe, to do the tapings. But they had a whole lot better equipment than Straightforward did, by the way. But he also, this is what he asked too. He said, I can't help but think the Southeastern and Continental Championship Wrestling generated and spent a lot of money on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly and yearly basis, especially during the time the Northern and Southern divisions. I don't know what they would done in Knoxville. I don't know what we was never there. We were never in the Knoxville territory until Jim Barnett took it over. I know business was bad then, but it wasn't anything they were doing. They had great matches. It was just that war killed Knoxville, killed that whole area. Because not only did they have a war with Bob Orton and Bob Roop, but they was the Savages they had to deal with as well. They were in part of that Kentucky as well. So you had so much bad stuff going on. It didn't hurt Memphis. So maybe it wasn't really, maybe it really had nothing to do with the promotion, or maybe the stuff they did just was horrible. I'm not for sure. I wasn't there, so I don't know if it was bad or good. I just know, but by the time Atlanta went there, they never could make it. Georgia Championship Wrestling taking over Southeastern Championship Wrestling never made any money the whole time it was there. Knoxville did some horrible crowds, but they tried to run on a Sunday afternoon, right before the Omni, I believe, didn't they? Right, so they could use the same.
Yeah, they would have never been able to make it to Knoxville to Atlanta. I don't think.
But it was just never. It just didn't do well on a Sunday afternoon. It was like at 2:00 or something, and it just never drew. Then I think Knoxville always was a Friday night town, or it would do good on Saturdays as well, as long as you didn't have college football. At college football time, you would die in Knoxville.
Honestly, what Roop and them were doing in Knoxville would have hurt anybody. It didn't matter what it was. What they would do is they would advertise people from the other organization to be there that night. Okay, they pull a no-show, and then the fans are mad, and then they don't give them their money back. All right, they say they're because they get on TV and Ronnie Garvin's challenging Ron Fuller to come to the match. If you got any guts, you'll be down there. People expect to see them when they get there, and there's nobody there, so it ended up killing the whole thing off.
But as far as generating, every town was different.
And honestly, I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Knoxville was sold. The Knoxville and bought the southern area.
No, he was running both at one time. Okay. He had bought the southern part from the Fields, and he was running both of them at the time. Louis Tilley and Curtis, what's his name? Jack, Don Curtis.
Yes,
what's his name? They were the ones in the southern end that was running it, while Ron and Robert and them were running the one on the other side. Now, Charlie Platt believes that there could have possibly been a group in the Southern Division that was going to do the same thing that happened to him in the other division, which leads you to believe maybe wasn't always a nice person. So that's what he believes. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but he thought at the same time that because he remembers, Charlie says, I remember calling him and saying, you might want to get down here because something is not right here. And it's been done several times in the wrestling business. So, that would be a lot to have to take care of back in those days. But we don't know anything about the Northern Division, by the way. We wasn't there. We don't know nothing about it. We only know what we know while our father was working there. In 1983 for 6 weeks, business was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. He comes back and sometime in 1984, business is horrible. He was not doing well. We go back in 1985, it was a completely different wrestling company. Business was tremendous from 1985 till about the summer 1987. Business was incredible. They made nothing but money. And Continental. There's so many other things. You asked the question, looking back, would it have been viable to expand the office, payroll, and production costs to expand concession programmers? I think at the time they probably should have. When David Woods bought Knoxville, they should have probably had 2 territories running. It was very hard to go from Knoxville, Tennessee on a Friday, and we booked Dothan, Alabama on a Saturday, which was done a few times because sometimes you had to. So I really truly believe if you look back at it, probably 2 territories would not have been a bad idea. He maybe should have kept USA Championship Wrestling by itself and ran Continental separate as well because it just didn't work. Knoxville was drawn, but you couldn't run Dothan the way you needed to run it because Dothan needed to be run every week. And we had a whole thing that we were going to actually tape the show on the stage at the Civic Center every Saturday morning. So yeah, I could see that we needed to do that, but so many things. We could tell you the whole stories, but we're running out of time at this point. This thing is going a little long, but if you enjoyed this, give us the big thumbs up. Subscribe to the page. Go one step further. Hit that notification bell. I'll tell you what, we'll talk more about it because we could get in depth with this, but be in depth with it. It's one of those things would have to be a 3 or 4 hour discussion on each town, and maybe even why Birmingham didn't quit drawing. I don't think it was because of bad booking. It was just about television. Don't you agree, Rodney?
Yes.
The loss of television.
Yes, and yeah, channel 6 moving the show around, and then moving to channel 21, and then moving to 17, and then back to 21 did not help anything at all.
There's a lot more we could talk about, and we will on the next video right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now. All right, let's see. People ask some questions on here. We'll do the other thing next because I'm going to work on a video for the Blindfold Battle Royal. I found some stuff to do that with.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where are we at here? Let's see. Abdullah has a story about our man Hussein at the airport. I said that was pretty. I bet that's an interesting story. Michael Barr, no ticket locations, Dothan, Alabama. They can only be bought at the doors. Aaron said, I remember purchasing my tickets, walk up at the Houston County Farm Center. Yeah, that's how you had to do it. Ever so often, WTBI radio station in Dothan would give away tickets through a song of the day.
I'm not turning you off and on. I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it.
Folks, this is musical. I needed to turn some music on. There we go. That's what we're missing. That's what we're missing right now. We're missing some great music, background music. Did they put us any better music? No, they didn't put us any better music on. We still got the same music that they gave us, thinking that was great music. Daniel Lang said, Brent, a few months back, I asked what it meant to Russell Luce. I was reading Gary Hart's book then, and he said Mark Lewin Russell Luce, but he was good at it. Nobody could tell. Well, evidently, Gary wasn't watching his matches. Mark Lewin was good at some point, but I don't believe Mark Lewin was any good by the time he got to Georgia. Maybe in Houston, but did y'all think that Mark Lewin stuff looked good? Because I don't think I did.
I never saw him till he was the Purple Haze, and I was not impressed.
I saw him in Atlanta. Rodney, Mark Lewin.
Honestly, when he came in as Maniac Mark Lewin, it was a total disappointment because he was so over before. It's just Mark Lewin. And if you watch him in Australia, he looked great. But once he started doing the Maniac thing and the foaming at the mouth nonsense, it was, I didn't buy it. It was awful. Let's just remember that is what led me to not Mark Lewin leads me to can't stand Kevin Sullivan.
Now the term loose, is that not more what we refer to as working light?
Probably, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not a big fan of because most fans can tell if you're not. All I can say is my experiences with Mark Lewin from Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1980. Was it 1980, Rodney?
Yes.
1980 was horrible. His wrestling stuff was horrible. His punches was horrible. His selling was horrible. He didn't want to take any bumps. He didn't want to do anything, but he just wanted to beat people up. And to me, he was just horrible at that time. Now, that's my opinion of Mark Lewin. When I go back and watch some of the stuff that he did in when he was a babyface, when he was in Detroit, tremendous stuff.
Yes.
His stuff looked good. His punches looked good.
Yes.
Everything looked good. But was it because the Sheik told him, don't go out there and halfway do this crap? Don't make us look bad. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not for sure. I just know the Mark Lewin I saw live, Mark Lewin on television, Georgia, I was very disappointed in what he did.
Yeah.
So you never saw Mark Lewin, Jack, and while he was working for Georgia?
Well, I've gone back and looked at some of the Australia stuff, but at that time, until he, was doing that, that's the first time I had ever seen him. So my opinion of him was in the dumpster right from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm just not a big fan about Mark Lewin. And when Kevin Sullivan took that gimmick, each one of them wanted to be King Curtis, I believe. Yeah. I believe they all just wanted to start wrestling like King Curtis did. And really, there should have only been one King Curtis. That's just and when he beat you, you could tell he was beating you up pretty good. Yeah. But these guys, I was not a big fan of either way. I just don't like that type of gimmick. I was not a big Abdullah the Butcher fan though. I liked him in little spurts, but if I had to see him every week, he just wouldn't sell a ticket to me every week. I couldn't pay to see just beating every week. In all my years, I never had a problem with the money as we counted everything before. However, Advance was a 3 times walk up. It was always good to have Advance money on. City of Union seemed to. It was it was good, but back then you could almost, if you had a television program, let's say you had Continental Championship Wrestling and it was on Channel 6, and you had a 6 or 7 rating, you were pretty well known you were going to draw 3,000 to 5,000 people. You're either going to sell it out for whatever you did on the television, or you're going to at least 2,000-3,000 people because you knew you had it. Now that 7 dropped toward 3. Now you're in trouble because now your ratings are not there to draw the people. Now if they drop to a 1, now you're really in trouble. And that's what happened to Birmingham, Alabama. The television got messed up so many times that Birmingham died because of it. Because I remember somebody saying, well, I didn't even know Continental Wrestling was still here. Because they didn't see it on television. And the same thing happened. The same thing happened in Florence, Alabama. They went from being on ABC, I believe it was the ABC affiliate there, to a TV station that you could not get when you pulled outside the building.
I remember the show that I was wrestling on in Boaz. Our attendance started going up. And really couldn't figure out why. I got talking to some of the fans after the show one night. They said, well, Continental's not working. Not running anymore. And I thought, well, I did TV with them Monday. So if they're out of business, I don't know about it.
And it's just because the people didn't know the TV was on. And it got moved around so drastically and so often that it just killed Birmingham.
And also stopped running it every week. Also a terrible mistake.
Yeah, and Dothan the same thing. Dothan had, even at the end of 1989, still had like 6 rating. They were just waiting for something to happen to go and watch the show, and nothing was going. I mean, honestly, some things just they really took and slapped the fans in Dothan, Alabama, in the face when they kept on putting everything in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they never showed anything from Dothan anymore. They took the fans and said, here, we don't care nothing about you. We only care about the people in Knoxville. Yeah. And it hurt Dothan, and it was still good for what, Brian? We do $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 each week.
In the end, Dothan, Montgomery, and Knoxville were the best towns. And that's because nothing changed. The TV slot did not change. The arenas basically didn't. We changed from this Civic Center to the Farm Center back and forth. But other than that, things stay the same in all of those markets for sure. But honestly, the TV show should have remained in Dothan just as is, just to promote Dothan, because they weren't paying that much for that TV. They could have still done it. But as we learned from the conversation we've had with Ron Fuller, he was too lazy to do several shows through the week. It's true. I mean, he goes up and was complaining to Robert because of how many TV shows we had to do a week. What are you talking about? And then we do just 2. And when you're not willing to make the investment or put the time in, this is what happens.
This is true. What was the best-selling merchandise in the given territory back then? Bass Street USA shirts. Bass Street shirts sold tremendous, but the only thing we sold back in the days of the UWF, Bob Armstrong stuff sold tremendously.
Yes.
You would have T-shirts. If you ordered a couple of dozen T-shirts, they'd be sold Monday night. You wouldn't have none for the rest of and it didn't matter. Whatever you ordered, you sold it in Birmingham, Alabama that night. You never had it for the rest of the territory. Brad Armstrong sold very well. Adrian Street.
Yes.
And this is when he was a bad guy now. This is when he's heel. He wasn't a baby face. He would outsell most of the baby faces because he had beautiful stuff. It just goes to show you can hate somebody and still buy his merchandise. And Adrian Street, people hated him, but they loved to hate him. That was what was good about Adrian. So many other people. Terry Taylor, Rodney don't like Terry Taylor, but he sold a lot of merchandise. Mid-South Wrestling, Rock and Roll Express, sold a lot. Yes. Jim Duggan, I used to go and I would sell pictures of Terry Taylor, and I'd walk around one time. I might sell 200 pictures of Terry Taylor in one go around in Mid-South Wrestling. I can't remember what we sold them, maybe $3. I can't remember now how much they were, but they did pay me a little bit more than Red used to pay for that. Actually, they gave me 10%. I'm pretty sure I got 10% of that. Michael Barr, I heard through the grapevine that a certain wrestler stole money from a certain promotion and the wrestlers were furious.
You got to be more specific because that's happened a few times.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell a little bit more better story. Jim Walter will build your home at half off. Yes, but they'd only build half your house. That was a problem.
There you go.
Michael, that wrestler should be hunted down. Richard Hood said. Stuart Kemp replied to Michael, the ripoffs happened many times. That said, you'd hear the wrestlers did the show anyway. Wasn't crowd's fault. Michael Barr, Boutwell Auditorium drew some great crowds. Yes, they did. They certainly did draw some great crowds. Even back in Nick Goulas' time, regardless what Jerry Jarrett had to say. Yeah, Nick Goulas did draw. Yeah. Brent Rodney was it David Wisdom on WTVY television and Dothan. Yes, he did own WTVY for a fraction of the time. By the time he owned it, I don't think he owned WTVY anymore. By the time he owned Continental Wrestling Federation, I don't think David Woods owned WTVY. Did he, Rodney?
I think I always assumed that that TVY was owned by his father.
It was owned by his father, but I think his father passed away, and I think he sold it to whatever group that was.
Okay.
That he ended up owning it. I don't think he owned it at the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still had great. I think he even had an office at the WTBY studio still. But I don't know. I think David Woods' father was still alive while we were there.
That's what I was thinking.
So yeah, he may have still owned it at the time. You know, David Woods' father was I think he was he now a war hero?
Yeah, I believe Korean War. I believe.
I think he got burnt or something.
Yeah, he was very disfigured. Ran for governor several times.
You know, so you know, he was a great guy. Charles Bellflower said went to the Omni in the late 70s, $7 a ticket, Athens $3.50. Yeah, hey, J&J said, hey, I saw Dusty Rhodes, and I remembered it once I saw Dusty Rhodes, Charles, and it said something wrestling, the J&J Center on it. I'd seen that shirt. Dusty Rhodes is wearing it on a TV. And actually in Florida, he had it on in Florida. And he said
we had some of those T-shirts.
Yeah, I know. It just brought back memories when I saw that. I thought. Stuart Kemp, any personality is not the draw, even if a top-rated TV. Any personality is not the draw, even if a top-rated TV show. Yeah, if your TV's horrible, it's just. It don't matter who you have. It is not going to help you. Michael Barr, radio personalities are not as good as they were in the 80s. Now most radio stations are satellite feed, no DJs. Yes, I've never understood. I've never understood why radio stations have an app to listen to music. Ain't that just killing their own business? I mean, this makes no sense to me why you would have that, because why would you listen to commercials when you didn't have to? I mean, it makes no sense. No. Stuart Kemp, radio stations rarely hold onto people for very long, and now they have auto jocks. Yes, I agree with you. They've kind of killed themselves. Working at a radio station today, live morning 6 to 9, Monday through Friday, automation. The rest of the day, unless it's football games or NASCAR, a live remote on Saturday. Richard Hood, Plan B was awful. I'm still upset about it. I am too, Richard.
Yeah, that
really ain't, but
that was terrible on all accounts. I mean,
yes.
No one won in that. No, there was no winner. It was just varying degrees of losing.
Yes. Even the celebrities don't draw as well unless you spend a ton of cash like a Comic-Con to draw. Even they make the original cash off vendors. A little bit of door pays for the venue. Yes, I would agree with you.
Yeah, I was part of a Comic-Con thing about 3 years ago up in Knoxville. And it did well. It didn't do as well as I thought it would. I mean, there was all kinds of wrestlers there, all kinds of celebrities. I got to meet Lee Majors, so that was worth it for me.
Right, Charles. I don't know for sure. College football. Charles said he announced high school football across 3 counties. Wow, Charles. Can you name the station, Charles, or is that enough? Let's see what he had said. Replying, even the morning shows were live there, many times syndicated. The show emanates from one area and satellite to other. Yeah, almost every one of them are now. What the
Well, we
big
still
product
have a
was.
lot of live ones here. Now, Huntsville, Birmingham, they're going to more syndicated stuff.
Charles said WMOQ 92.3 FM out of Monroe, Georgia, is where he was doing that. Stuart Kemp said you can listen online now and no longer do the call letters come up on programs. Yes, this is true. I once helped a radio station and 2 television stations with Friday Night Football scores. Michael Barr even made an announcement or 2 for wrestling here in the Southeast. Great deal. Aaron said, I really appreciate you answering my questions. To really answer these questions, it would take a long time. But we could take Birmingham and break it down from 1983 when we were there until 1989, and even when World Championship Wrestling there, because we were there when World Championship Wrestling was running on a monthly basis, and Pepsi was the sponsor. Now, we could get into the Pepsi being a sponsor and what they actually paid for to be a sponsor for Birmingham show. Ole fired Mark Lewin. Well, good for him. He also fired Abdullah, by the way, Richard. They both got fired.
And Mephisto.
Yeah, great Mephisto. I wish they should have been fired. WTVF.
Just Mephisto, no great into it anymore.
And Troy Brunderdown and Al Roberts with WTVY back in the day. Yeah, Charlie Platt was a DJ back in the day.
Cousin Charlie.
Yeah, Cousin Charlie. You know, Gene Golden always called him Cousin Charlie. Hey, let me tell you something, Cousin Charlie. Dan Lang. So working loose meant the opposite of working stiff. Yeah, but you know what? To me, there's not really any working stiff. It's just everything you do should look real. It don't matter what it is.
There's working stiff, and there's working tight, and there's working light or loose. I guess you would. Maybe that was a term. I never really heard it called loose, but. There were few guys that I ever worked that were light that were really good, with the exception being Bill Dundee, the Armstrong, all of them, especially Bob. I mean, honestly, if you wasn't paying attention, Bob would do something to you, and if you didn't know what he had done, you wouldn't have felt it. That's how light he was. Where on the other hand, me and Terry Gordy would beat the crap out of each other, and we didn't care.
Well, it is professional wrestling. No, it's not the ballet. So
I preferred knowing that you were hitting me. Now, don't hit me in the face, but everything else is fair game. Yeah,
it should be a disqualification to hit a man in the face in professional wrestling.
Yeah,
it is just. It should be, because it always was, and it should be today. Because it cannot be a true deal of hitting somebody in the face. They just go, okay, nothing happened to me. Saw him many times for the Sheik's promotion. Richard Hood, Rodney Abdullah and Lewin were gimmicks and not to be long in the territory. Yes, we know that. And, the problem was they were there 2 weeks longer than they should have been. They should have only been there a week, and they should have been gone. They killed Atlanta. They killed Georgia Championship Wrestling. Rob Brent took sponsors to bring on the wrestling matches. Michael Barr. Charlie Platt knew that it was hurting Dothan as well, as the fans, the 1980 fans, wanted to come back on television. They should have never left Dothan. They should have kept that TV going. But again, like Rodney said, there was some laziness that they didn't want to do all the TVs. Saw Mark Lewin sit on the bench right outside of Cincinnati Music Hall Arena, looking like he lost his last friend. Somebody probably actually hit him that night, and he got a little bit.
It's probably when Don Curtis had enough of him and kicked him out of the tag team.
He fired Abdullah after he saw him with a car balloon. Yes, he did. Local area may have some push. What we call larger markets don't have anymore. Now you're here or see filled with soul programs or infomercials. Yeah, it's all radio is now, right, Jack?
We use Michael St. John's radio station in Arab, Alabama. It's a small radio station, of course, small town. But it does well for us. Now, on the other hand, our lead announcer was on the most popular sports radio, ESPN radio, out of Huntsville. And I love the guy to death. He's great. Didn't draw us anything. So, it's according to where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that. We've we've what in the world did we spend that advertising for? I've done that several times. So, all right. Is there anything we need to talk about before we leave today?
I think we got her.
Hello.
You're
There we go.
We can still hear you.
All right. I lost sound for some reason all at once. Anything we need to talk about before we leave?
No.
I think we're good.
All right, guys. Next week, don't forget. Next week, be looking for a private message because we're gonna try to do one link from now on that you just go to every week, and that's as well. You'll know you need to go. That way, we don't have problems with links and people not getting it on there. And people wanting to hunt me down and run me over with their car and all that kind of stuff. So we'll just make it easy for everybody. Thank you all so much, and you all three. Yeah, I think we did freeze up for a minute. I lost something all at once. So I don't know what happened. Thank you guys so much. We certainly do appreciate you supporting us. We have a lot of things coming up in October. Don't forget about our show, and for anybody who can get there to Lafayette, Georgia, or Lafayette, whichever one you want to go to. But we got a lot of stuff going on next year as well. So we do appreciate you supporting the channel. Thank you all, and we'll see each and every one of you next.